her little sister Shirley, that was 9. And I love that family. And I went with Ken everywhere. Boy, did I get indoctrinated into missions, because they had churches. He had helped establish churches in the jungle areas and way off in coastal areas and up in the upper highlands. So I had some incredible experiences with Ken. He taught me to fish underwater with a harpoon gun in the rivers. We went one river, the water was crystal clear, 6 hours. I had a stringer of fish just trailing behind me. Thankfully there's not alligators in that river, but it was an awesome experience. You know, you saw fish every time you went underwater. But Ken's daughters, Darlene, and I carry her picture in my Bible because she impacted me so much. I was 22, I guess Darlene was around 15 when I first met her, 14 or 15. And she had a heart for the poor children at that young age. And they lived outside of Guatemala City near a lake called Lake Amatitlan, but the same railroad tracks that you were on today goes out of the city and goes past where they live. And people live in shacks along the tracks where they live. And Darlene and her little sister Shirley would do Saturday Sunday school for the kids at the tracks there. And they had a real nice house that Ken built, and a hillside that went down to the lake. And they'd have all these poor kids sitting on the lawn, and they'd have candy for them and piñatas, and they would have Bible stories and just fun for these poor kids. And I was so impacted by this love that Darlene and little sister Shirley, 15 to 9 years old, doing that for all these little kids. And of course I was impacted by Ken and his wife. They kind of adopted me. And that's how they mentored me in the beginning. And so, when Darlene was 17, she had some kind of kidney failure. And she died in Knoxville. And it broke my heart. I wept like a little baby. She was a beautiful girl. She was the most studious girl. She went to the Christian Academy. She had all these books and everything. And she was just like such a good girl. And she was probably too good for this world. But I took her home. And so the years went by. Worked a lot with Ken. Gave a lot of motorcycles to their pastors through the Christian Motorcycles Association. Did a lot of exciting trips. You know, he established a lot of churches. One of the churches is the church you were working at in Escuintla with Pastor Neri. And Ken, I was in the United States, and one day Ken, who always could outfish me with the harpoon gun, strong guy, a wonderful missionary, probably the best missionary I've ever met. You know, he was not a good preacher, but he was a friend to all the pastors. And when we went to places, man, we'd sleep in places you wouldn't believe, you know, and we'd be looking at the chickens that were our next meal, you know, and what an experience, you know, with Ken. I remember one time we were in a hut in a jungle someplace, and I was enjoying my breakfast, you know, black beans and scrambled eggs and all, and suddenly my fork hit something solid in the black beans, and I started to excavate, and I found this great big old cockroach.
Oh, no.
And I just remember Ken looking at me and smiling. and he was just used to everything, you know. But I was in the States, and Ken had a group, and he went to the airport to drop them off, came back home. It was very early in the morning. He was at the breakfast table. His wife was still in bed, and she heard a choking noise. She came out, and he was slumped over, and he had died of a heart attack.
Oh.
And I kind of saw in Ken, you know, a light went out when Darlene died. But anyways, the years went by, and Shirley grew up, and she met this guy from Houston, a guy named Paul. And so she went to Houston to live and brought her mother Dorcas to Houston. And they came back to Guatemala, and I translated for a pastor's conference they had. And I looked at Shirley and I thought, wow, she's just a beautiful woman, just a wonderful person. I hadn't seen her for a few years. And I guess it was about 2 years after that conference that I heard that she was dying. She had a brain tumor. They gave her less than a year to live. And when she was dying, and I need to backtrack. She and her husband Paul could not have children, so they adopted a little girl from Russia, an infant named Sadie. Well, Sadie was about 9 years old when this happened, and Shirley was on her deathbed, and Shirley, I can still remember her infectious laugh every place we went. And she said to her husband Paul and to her daughter, she said, you know, when I was little and my older sister and I used to feed the kids. We used to do stuff for the children. And when I die, can you do that in Guatemala?
Yes.
Can you feed the kids? And Sadie took that to heart. And when she came back to Guatemala and she started going to Christian Academy, that's when she went to Swingland, when she went to the church we were at. And she said to her grandmother, Dorcas, Kim's wife, Grandma, why can't we do a feeding center here? There's a lot of poor children there. And that's how Sadie's heart began. And I'm very happy that God put in your heart, Carmela, to come and spend the time there in Esquimalt and to help the ministry there, because the ministry was dying. Dorcas, you know, she doesn't even know how to use a computer. You know, she's another generation. She wanted to keep the ministry going, but she doesn't know how to raise funds. I tried a little bit, but they needed your help to keep going. And I don't know if Larry shared that with you, but by your involvement, that ministry will keep going, feeding the kids there in the school. And there's more to that story, but I think, I'll start crying tonight. Get a hot sauce. 2 Christian men from the church we began in a refugee camp of 10,000 squatters in Guatemala City. And one was named Israel, and the other was called Manapolo. But they worked real hard for us, and I didn't have much money. We just, on faith, we were just fortunate to be able, my dad lent us some money so we could buy the property and just get started. And they spent 2 years making this house, and somehow we made it, you know, and praise God. And then in the backyard, I decided we're going to drill a well, because there's only one house in this neighborhood back then, and we didn't have any water. We had to buy water. We'd buy truckloads of water. And so we made a well. But these 2 guys dug this well, and it took them 1 year to dig 75 meters deep by hand. And they had this like cross beam thing and a pulley and then a rope, you know, and a bucket. And then one guy up on top would crank the bucket down. First he cranked the guy down. He'd sit on this little piece of wood, you know, and crank him down the wood, you know. 75 meters is a long ways down into the earth. And he'd be down there chipping away at rocks, you know, because we had to go through layers of rock, you know, and then bucket load by bucket load, you know, haul these rocks out of the hole, the well. And I was really hoping we'd get some water. And one day I saw them doing this, and I thought, I wonder what it's like down there. They were about 70 meters deep at that point. And I thought, I wonder what it's like. He's down there for hours. I wonder what it'd be like to go down there. And so this was in the morning, and so I went out there and I said, I'd like to go down there and see what it's like down there. They looked at each other. Are you sure? I said, yeah, I just want to see what it's like, you know. And so I sat on that saddle, that piece of wood, and they cranked me down. And the hole is like about this, you know, diameter. And as I got lower and lower, the hole seemed to get smaller and smaller. And it got darker and darker. And I was watching, you know, they had their heads looking down at me, you know. And I could first see they were smiling, you know, or one was smiling, the other was hanging down. And I started to get claustrophobic. And, you know, I started to feel weak. And so I finally made it to the bottom. And I could barely see their faces looking at me way up there with that tiny hole way up there. They could have asked for a raise or anything. All I could do was yell, "Get me out of here," you know? And I could barely hang on as they cranked me back out, you know? So I was only down there for a few minutes, you know? Being down in a hole that deep is horrible. It's like hell. But that same day, it's interesting, that same day, for the first time that we had lived on this mountain, this is a mountain, and you can walk up to the top. There's a road. And when you get up to the top, there's this view that's incredible. They've got all these antennas broadcasting onto the city. But if you go off to the edge there, you can see the entire city. You can see that Lake of Matlan where Ken used to live. You can see the volcanoes around. It's just the most awesome, spectacular view. You feel like you're on top of the world. So I went from being down in the guttermost to the uttermost, from the pits to the ritz. And I say that because that's exactly what our ministry is with children, you know. Mostly we work with children, but it's to bring them from the darkness to the light. And you guys have brought light in the darkness. You have done so much. I wasn't with you even in San Miguel, you know, but I know what you did. I've been doing this for 41 years. But it's just awesome that you guys came. Thank you for coming and sharing God's love with the people.